4,000 Wiggins asks, can you connect it to a PC with link cable? Yes, link cable is going to be fully capable. AirLink is also going to be capable virtual desktop. Any of the features you used on Quest 2 with PC, you can now do with Quest 3 with those better graphics, the higher field of view. The only question will be battery life on it with running something like AirLink and now this higher resolution. Unfortunately, I won't be able to answer that till I get the headset and do some in-depth testing, but it should be a better PC experience in every way possible so far. The only last question is, how are those controllers going to be? Rouge mentions it'll be really interesting to find out what the two-stage trigger will be like. Finally, we've gotten some confirmation on what that meant. Road to VR covered this and brought up how the Touch Plus brings one more little secret that no other touch controller has to date, which is that two-stage index trigger. A user can fully pull the trigger, and that is counted as the trigger being pulled, but then if an additional force is squeezed, that can be measured as a separate value. This meaning that, like in Half-Life Alyx, when you were to grab the cans with a set of Valve index controller, when you squeezed it harder, all of a sudden you'd see the hand continue to crush the can. So this gives the developers options to add something new to games to where you can grab something and you can pull it a little tighter, although they did say trigger and not necessarily the grip button has this. This is similar to what the Touch Pro controllers have that barely anyone knows about. There's a pressure sensor in the thumb spot where if you squeeze tightly, it's one more input that will think, okay, something's being squeezed. With how few people have the Quest Pro out there though, this is never something I've seen any developer implement, so hopefully we'll see more use of this on the Quest 3. The Wormwood asks, in your experience, do you think the Quest Pro controllers will be worth it for the Quest 3? I think for certain people, yes. If you are a really intense Gorilla Tag player, if you want to be a Beat Saber legend, I'm talking like beyond expert plus even, I think the Pro controllers will be worth it for those audiences. For casual VR people who are fine with Quest 2 controllers, the Quest 3 controllers so far seem to be okay, but I even ran into some tracking issues trying Lamille's body combat, and that tells me that for like really high-end Beat Saber, especially if you're modding it and playing custom tracks, I think you'd really want that excellent tracking the Quest Pro controllers give you. When mine worked really well with my Pro, it was the closest thing to Lighthouse tracking I've ever felt on any headset before, and Lighthouse tracking is like the golden standard, of course. That said, I will warn you, my Quest Pro controllers after a while started having some issues. They started disconnecting. If you're having those, it's going to break the whole experience and the amount of money you paid for them. So definitely maybe hold out, see how these controllers respond to the Quest 3 first. But if we find out they're working really well with it, I would say they're definitely worth it for those audiences. Roblox Exploiter asks, I'm planning for the Quest 3 to be my first VR headset. Is this a good idea? Yes, this is a great idea. I started out back in the day, old school VR headsets, wired, clunky, low resolution. You're getting the most revolutionary headset that's out right now. Wireless, high fidelity, can connect to a PC if you wanted to play even stronger games. If this is your first real VR experience, you're gonna be blown away. And by your name, I'm guessing you're excited that Roblox is on there along with over 500 other games you can play because you haven't been in VR all these years playing all these previous games. Great idea. Coxzilla asks, will they lower the price on this? Now, historically, the Quest line hasn't seen a ton of price drops. We've actually rarely seen a price increase back in the day on the Quest 2. Your best bet if you're trying to look for a deal on the Quest 3, either use a referral link that gives you $30 credit and whoever gave you the referral link $30 credit, or if you do hold out for Black Friday, we might see some deals where they offer a bundle or some games with it or something like that, but most likely with the headset just launching at the price it's at, we probably won't see a price drop. The only thing I'm personally hoping for is maybe we see a 256 replace the 128 down the road for the same price, like we saw the Quest 2 do with its original 64 that they replaced with the 128 at the same price point. If you're wanting a Quest 3 in the next 6 months though, your best bet is probably gonna be some sort of bundle, but most likely you're gonna be paying pretty close to full price. User something asks, is it hand tracking? The Quest 3 isn't necessarily using just hand tracking or just controllers, but a combination of both all the time now. If you set down your controllers, it's gonna be just seeing your hands, but when you pick up the controllers, it's still tracking your hands and is also tracking the infrared lights that are on the controller. And as Boz mentioned, it's even using machine learning AI to keep these constantly tracking where you are. This means not only more points of tracking than we've seen in previous headsets, but also the potential to see some really cool new experiences that utilize your controllers and your hands simultaneously. We saw some early examples of things with PSVR where they would let you put your controller in your pocket, use their aim controller, and then you'd reach down, grab the other controller as a separate sidearm. I'm hoping we see some opportunities like that on Quest 3 where games are hand tracked, but then you grab your gun out of your pocket, aka your controller, and use it at the times you need a gun for the haptics that it provides. If any developers hear this and that's not a thing yet, I think it would be really cool. Bravo Kilo says, I saw you playing with controller tracking. How is the tracking close to your face? I know in games like Ghost of Tabor, people have issues while aiming with the Quest 2 controllers because they are too close. I've had issues like this too. I pointed this out when we first got the Quest 2. The problem is the cameras are all on the edges of your face, so if you're pulling up like a sniper rifle really close to your eye, the tracking ring might become completely out of view or too close for it to focus on. Now that the cameras are tracking your whole hands and the controllers all the time, it seemed like whenever I got close to my face, it didn't have a problem with that anymore. Cameras are also on the front and still on the side, so it seems like it has a really good range with that. I feel like for shooters, these controllers are going to be okay, but for games like Beat Saber, I've mentioned this before, where you reach out, when I was playing Lemil's Body Combat and I was slapping the targets down to the side, it kept messing up out here even with the controllers and my hands. Killer asks, the Quest 2 controllers always felt a little off fit in my hands. Are these controllers an exact match without the rings to the Quest 2 controllers? I will say from holding and feeling them, they feel like they are pretty much the exact same shape as the Quest 2 without the rings. They look to be the exact same as the Quest Pro controllers, which I've spent tons of time with, and I even showed the Quest Pro controllers were so close to the Quest 2 controllers that you could actually use accessories from the Quest 2 controllers as long as they only held onto the bottom of the controller and didn't rely on the actual tracking ring. We'll probably see the same thing here with these new controllers. Some of the accessories from previous ones may still work, like the grips that grip onto the bottom, the golf clubs that grip on from the bottom as well. It'll give us some options for accessories while we're still waiting for developers to come up with them. Ginger Time Lord asks, will Quest 2 games have smoother frame rates right out of the box on Quest 3, or will the devs have to do something? With the higher horsepower, the FPS should immediately improve on games that have struggled at all with it before. So far, the Quest showing that it's 90 Hz or 120 Hz experimental though. The big question though is long-term for those who are making theirs Quest 3 capable and pushing the graphics all the way up. Will it then start to have frame rate issues again because they're now pushing as much power out of that chip as they were the chip on the Quest 2, just with better graphics? Peter Munoz Bennett has a big question here, but Jay, does it really cost less than the Quest Pro? $650 for Quest 3. If you get the additional dock, it's on 120, we're at $770. Bobo VR Halo strap, if that's $80, we're at $850 now. Pro controllers, if you buy them, $300, now you're up to $1150, and suddenly ends up costing more without the foveated rendering or the face tracking and even less RAM. This is a good point to bring up, especially even if you were just a Beat Saber player who wants the great tracking of the Pro controllers and wants the 512, you're looking at $950, and who knows if we're going to see the Quest Pro drop in price again after this comes out. I still don't recommend anyone really buys a Pro. The Pro does have some great features to it, but it's still a high price compared to other VR headsets on the market. And now that people are developing for the Quest 3, who knows how long they'll continue to develop for the Quest Pro, especially since the Quest 3 doesn't have the eye tracking or the face tracking. And the pass-through on the Quest 3, the MR capabilities, is still much better than what we've seen on the Quest Pro. I think the Quest Pro will quickly get added to the list of headsets Meta has dumped and moved on from, and I hate to say that for how much some people paid for it. Llama Land has a three-parter here. Are game visuals any better than the Quest Pro or not much difference? The Red Matter demo, where you get to try it on the Quest 3, looked as good as it looked on the Quest Pro with foveated rendering, and that's huge. For those of you who don't know what foveated rendering is, that's when it tracks your eyes, it sees where your eyes are looking, and gives it the best possible resolution where you're looking to save on power everywhere else on the image. And as we've seen on the PSVR 2, it can take a game like No Man's Sky from looking kind of blurry to really amazing. So the fact that the Quest 3 is doing that without foveated rendering on a bigger area of resolution is impressive, and I would say it definitely has the capability to look better than the Quest Pro because of that higher PPD in VR mode, 25 pixels per degree versus the 22 of the Quest Pro. Do the Q3 controllers track as well as the Quest Pro controllers? I think even just from the demos and the time I spent, I can already say no, they don't. The Quest Pro controllers, when they're working correctly with the Quest Pro, are great tracking. It's nearly as good as Lighthouse tracking. Plus, there's no zone like there is with Lighthouse tracking that you can get outside of in your room, where if you walk out and you move out further, the Quest Pro controllers continue to track. The Quest 3 controllers don't have their own processing, they don't have their own cameras, and already even in some of the demos I was able to find some spots out to the sides of me where it wasn't keeping up. So many more of you have put in questions after the last Q&A video drop. There's still more questions from this original. I'm going to do my best to find the questions, especially the ones that are getting upvoted and liked, so that I can keep answering them for you. So if you have a little time, I'd love skim the comments, like a couple of questions that you want to see answered, or drop another one if you don't see your question there. And I'm going to do my best to get through as many of them as I can this week before launch. And then of course, after we get the headset, we get that review going, I'm going to answer hopefully the rest of your questions out there. But thank you again for being here with me, and I will see you in another reality.